The year was 1874. In the remote lands of Transylvania, the Carpathian Mountains stretched like jagged sentinels into the mist-laden sky. Dark forests carpeted the hills, thick with shadows that seemed almost alive, swallowing travelers who dared to stray from the narrow, snow-laden paths. Nestled among these hills stood the fortress of Countess Elizabeth Bathory, a woman whose name was a whispered curse across the villages below. Mothers told tales of her to frighten children. Travelers avoided the winding roads leading to her blackened gates, and even the wealthiest nobles hesitated to speak her name. Fear and awe intertwined in every whisper of her legend. Countess Bathory's beauty was legendary. Pale as winter snow, hair dark as a raven's wing, eyes sharp and calculating, she was both alluring and terrifying. But beneath her striking appearance lay a darkness that surpassed mortal comprehension. Rumors told of secret rituals and the bathing in blood of virgins to preserve her youth and beauty. Some claimed the screams of the unfortunate victims echoed through the fortress walls at night, muffled yet unmistakable. Servants obeyed not out of loyalty, but fear that chilled the marrow, for to disobey was to die and to witness was to court madness. Winter gripped the land when the first disappearances began. Snow-blanketed hills and forests, wind howling through skeletal trees like the moans of restless spirits. Children vanished near the forest's edge, leaving faint crimson trails in the snow. Villagers whispered of wolves' accidents or wandering spirits, but as the vanishings increased, fear morphed into paralyzing terror. Stories circulated of a pale figure moving through the woods at night, eyes glowing like lanterns searching relentlessly. Father Anton, the priest of the nearby village of Kolozvar, was a man of unwavering faith and courage. Hearing of the disappearances, he resolved to confront their source. One bitter night, he set out across the icy hills, crucifix clutched tightly in one hand, prayers whispered through trembling lips. His boots crunched on frozen ground, each step bringing him closer to the fortress, a black silhouette against the pale moonlight, ominous and oppressive. The gates of the fortress were enormous, wrought iron twisted into snarling beasts, creaking as though alive. They opened silently before him, daring him to enter. Inside, the fortress sprawled endlessly, corridors twisting like the coils of some ancient serpent. Candlelight flickered across tapestries depicting hunts and battles, their figures seeming almost alive, watching. The air was thick with wax-damp stone and the metallic tang of iron turning Father Anton's stomach. Silence pressed down like a living thing, broken only by the distant howl of wolves or the flutter of unseen wings. A muffled cry drew him deeper. Hand on his crucifix he followed, heart pounding, prayers rising with each step. Then descending a grand staircase she appeared. Countess Bathory moved with a grace that seemed otherworldly. Her pale face was serene, eyes glimmering with intelligence and cold calculation. Lips curved into a faint knowing smile that chilled Father Anton to the bone. "You should not be here, Father," she said softly, voice melodic yet edged with menace. "The world beyond these walls is cruel. Here I preserve beauty, life, and order." Father Anton noticed faint crimson stains on her hands, stepping back instinctively, gripping his crucifix tighter. "Countess Bathory," he stammered, "I've come to pray, to seek understanding. The villagers fear for their children, for their lives." "Fear is a tool, Father," she replied, tilting her head. "Fear sharpens the senses, clarifies intentions. The villagers do not understand the sacrifices required to transcend mortality." She led him through winding corridors, down spiral staircases that seemed to descend to the earth's bowels. They arrived at a chamber unlike any he had ever seen. Hundreds of large tubs shimmered crimson under candlelight. The metallic tang of blood clung to the air. Some contained dolls, others, forms too faint to comprehend fully. "These are instruments of renewal," she murmured. "To preserve what the world would consume, one must be vigilant, one must be devoted." Father Anton staggered back, nausea rising. He had faced evil before, but never so intimately entwined with beauty and cruelty. For nights afterward, whispers and muffled screams confirmed the rumors. Young women were carried into the castle, never to be seen again. Storms seemed to shake the fortress, while muffled cries echoed through its halls. Countess Bathory moved among her acts with serene composure, performing rituals of unspeakable devotion. Her power invited enemies. The crown sent emissaries after persistent rumors. Some vanished, others returned, minds shattered. babbling incoherently about the Red Queen rivers of blood and her eternal beauty. Father Anton resolved to save the village. Armed with villagers, they attempted entry under cover of darkness, carrying torches, holy water, and crosses. Yet the Countess always seemed aware of their movements, steps ahead in the twisting passages. One night, her full power manifested. Cornered in the grand hall, Countess Bathory did not fight conventionally. Her beauty became a weapon. Eyes glimmering unnaturally, the room warped. Shadows stretched and curled as if alive. Those who faced her felt sanity itself strain. Floors pulsed with crimson. Walls groaned. Hands emerged from darkness, whispering promises of life and terror. Father Anton raised his crucifix, chanting louder than ever. Her gaze pierced him. The castle seemed alive, a conscious entity protecting her. Her power was more than human cruelty. It was an extension of darkness, feeding on fear, devotion, and life itself. Weeks passed. The village continued to whisper her name. Some claimed she had vanished. Others believed her dead. Yet the legend persisted, a cautionary tale. Travelers spoke of the black fortress on the hills, faint echoes of screams drifting through the forests. Her beauty endured untouched by time. On certain nights, a red shimmer through the windows reminded the world that horror, elegance, and terror could coexist. The nights grew longer and colder in the villages surrounding the fortress. The snow deepened, blanketing hills and forests in an oppressive white. Yet beneath it a crimson truth lingered. Blood spilled, unseen, yet felt in every shadow. Father Anton's heart ached with dread and determination. Despite his faith, he could not deny the pervasive influence the Countess held over the land. The villagers' eyes were hollow with fear, their nights haunted by whispers and shadows, moving independently of any light source. Some claimed to see pale figures among the trees, vanishing when approached. Others swore they heard the laughter of children echoing in the wind, only to find nothing. Father Anton could not rest. Each night, he traversed the forested hills closer to the fortress, clutching his crucifix and reciting prayers, hoping to intercept the next victim. And always in the periphery of his vision, he felt her presence, slender, pale, radiant, yet impossibly terrifying. She watched him, even as he moved, her gaze tracing his steps through the snow-draped woods. Inside the fortress, Countess Bathory prepared for another night. Candles flickered across stone walls, casting shadows that danced like living creatures. She moved gracefully among the tubs, her hands dipping into the crimson liquid, her touch reverent, almost ceremonial. Servants moved silently, obeying without question, their faces pale, eyes downcast. Even they seemed aware of the power she wielded, the darkness that extended from her very being into every corner of the fortress. Father Anton arrived at the gates once more, this time with a small group of villagers, determined to confront her. They carried torches, crosses, and vials of holy water, hearts pounding, breath visible in the frozen night air. The fortress loomed over them, massive and unyielding, the iron gates twisted like snarling beasts. They entered silently, shadows stretching across stone floors, the echo of their steps swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Inside, the corridors twisted impossibly, as if the castle itself sought to trap them. Candlelight revealed walls lined with faded tapestries, depicting hunts and battles, figures appearing almost alive, watching their every move. Whispers drifted through the halls, low, unintelligible, yet charged with menace. The air reeked of iron and wax, and the metallic tang of blood seemed to cling to their lungs. At last they reached the grand hall. Countess Bathory stood at its center, radiant and terrifying. Her eyes glimmered, reflecting candlelight, and her lips curved in that familiar faint smile. Shadows moved at her command, stretching unnaturally across the walls and floors, curling like living things. "You should not have come," she said, voice melodic yet dangerous. "Faith will not save you. Fear will sharpen you, but devotion will sustain you." Father Anton stepped forward, crucifix held high. "By God's grace, I command you to cease this evil. Release the children. End this madness." Her laughter was soft, chilling, echoing through the hall. "Children? They are gifts. They serve a purpose greater than mortal comprehension. I preserve what the world consumes, and in my hands their innocence becomes immortality for those who deserve it. For those who deserve it." With a wave of her hand, shadows lunged toward the intruders. Torches flared as if in defiance, yet the darkness moved like liquid, curling around their limbs, whispering promises of power, knowledge, and fear. Some villagers screamed, eyes wide in terror, feeling their sanity fray under the assault of the Countess's influence. Father Anton's prayers grew louder, a shield of faith and determination against the overwhelming darkness. The Countess advanced, graceful, deliberate, her hands dipped in crimson. Her beauty seemed to radiate a force that was both enchanting and horrifying. "Do you think your God can stop the inevitable?" she murmured. "Time, death, decay, these are the natural order, and yet I transcend them. I am eternal. I am the Red Queen. You are nothing before me." Father Anton felt the weight of despair pressing against him, yet his faith remained unbroken. "Even the darkest night ends with the dawn. Your power is limited. Your soul is not beyond salvation." For a moment the hall seemed to tremble, the shadows quivering, reacting to his words. The Countess's gaze softened ever so slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. But it passed, replaced by an intensity that seemed to pull the very air into itself. She struck toward him, and Father Anton braced, crucifix extended, prayers burning through his voice like fire. The battle was not one of flesh and blood alone. Shadows, light, faith, fear, and cruelty collided in a storm that seemed to bend reality. Candles flickered, walls groaned, the stone floor rippled as if alive. The villagers, huddled together, felt the weight of centuries of evil pressing down upon them. Screams echoed, some human, some other, as shapes formed from shadow and blood danced through the hall, reaching, clawing, whispering. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time itself seemed meaningless within the fortress. Father Anton's voice did not waver, and slowly the darkness began to recoil, the shadows thinning as if wounded by his faith. The Countess's movements became slower, deliberate, her radiant beauty now tinged with desperation. She raised her hands in a silent, final invocation, the crimson liquid swirling around her like a storm. And then, with a scream that echoed through the hills, she vanished. Silence fell. The shadows dissipated, leaving only flickering candlelight and the heavy scent of iron. The villagers stared in awe and fear, their eyes reflecting both relief and terror. Father Anton sank to his knees, exhausted, yet his heart remained steadfast. The fortress was still, though the memory of its horrors lingered like a scar upon the land. In the years that followed, travelers and villagers would speak of the Red Queen, the pale Countess, whose fortress stood as a monument to both beauty and terror. Some claimed she had returned, wandering among the forests at night, eyes glowing in the dark, searching. Others believed she had been banished, her power broken by faith and courage. Yet all whispered her name with reverence and fear. For Countess Bathory had left an indelible mark upon the land, a legacy of obsession, cruelty, and the horrifying pursuit of eternal youth. Even today, the wind through the Carpathians carries faint echoes of screams, the rustle of shadows in forests, and the faint shimmer of red in the moonlight, reminding all who dare to listen that some darkness never dies, and some beauty conceals horrors beyond comprehension.